Welcome to Establish the Edge. I'm your host, Mike Leone. This episode, we're going to be looking at the NFC postseason Hold'em contest. And it's a contest that I've been doing for a few years. A ton of fun. I've got Davis Mattek with me to break it down. Before I do that, I want to mention this podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you use promo code ETR over at Underdog Fantasy, you can get a deposit match bonus up to $100 for free. So make sure to check that out. They've also got their own playoff contests going on. But Davis, thank you for joining me to break down the NFC contest.
I mean, this is it's definitely my favorite postseason contest. I'm thinking of is this my favorite contest that exists in fantasy football in general? It's pretty close, honestly. Best ball drafts are a little bit more addicting than this, but thinking through all the permutations, you could just sit there forever and do it pretty much.
I think I enjoy postseason contests more than anything else in fantasy football. I almost wish there were more regular season contests that mimicked these types of contests where it's even footing. Everybody has access to the same player pool. It doesn't matter what draft spot you get or anything like that. Or, there's no draft room. It's just kind of, it's like a DFS contest.
And there's an added element. There's an added element of skill in interpreting probabilities in terms of winning games, because people in these contests treat a 3-point favorite the same way they treat, a 9.5-point favorite or whatever. And that's a big element of it as well.
Yeah, I think there's a huge edge in ownership where that's gotten a little bit more solved in DFS to an extent, but it definitely hasn't in these types of contests. I like the FFPC one, I think, a touch more because it's deceptively complex. It seems so simple that I feel like you have almost a little bit more of an edge because any casual is oh, I can make a good team. Whereas here, this game, I definitely think there's edge, but I think people playing it are probably a little bit more aware of what they're getting into, but there is a lot more room to just totally mess things up. So I guess, first off, I'd say I did this episode last year with Chris Vaccaro of The Athletic. So I would encourage people to check that out because he had a lot of good stuff. I'm going to go back and watch it this week. But yeah, Davis, going through this setup. So you have 12 roster spots, right?
Yes. Yeah. You have 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 4 flex positions, wide receiver, tight end. So this is there's no tight end requirements. You don't have to play, TJ Hawkinson or Daniel Bellinger or whatever. There's one straight up flex spot. So that's running back, wide receiver, tight end. Then you have to select a kicker and a defense.
And then and you'll start the first round. You can only have 1 player per team. The second round, you can increase that to 2 players per team. So this is something where your roster is going to evolve throughout. So you can make add drops each week. The third week, you can have 3 players per team. And the fourth week, the Super Bowl, you can have 4 players per team. So come Super Bowl, you'll have 4 players on each side. The wrinkle, of course, with the add drops is the longer you hold a player, the more points they're worth. The first week they're on your roster, you get 1x their points. Mahomes scores 20 points. Well, he's a bad example because he's got a bye. But, Josh Allen scores 20 points week 1, you get 20 points. Week 2, if he scores 20 points and it's the second week on your roster, you would actually get 40 points. And that multiplier increases by 1 each week you hold them. Someone like Mahomes, you could start with, and for his first game, it'll be his second week on your roster. So you'll already be getting 2x his points right away.
Correct. I tend to think that the correct way to use the bye weeks is you want to select 1 quarterback from the bye week team and then 1 skill position as opposed to double quarterbacks, because even 2x on, let's say, Joe Burrow's points for the first 2 weeks, if he goes for 28 in the round 2 game in a loss, that is a lot of points, and then you can sub that guy in. So what I've done the last 2 years in this contest is taken Mahomes with the bye and use that as one of the quarterback slots and just kept him through there. But then for the and this is just the way it's worked out. I think you could sub that out and have Jalen Hurts as your bye guy and have McKinnon or Kelsey as your Chiefs guy. But I think using double quarterback buys is probably suboptimal.
Yeah, even though you're increasing the multiplier right away, round one, you're passing up a quarterback who's just going to put a lot of points in your roster and then hopefully get him to round two. And we'll probably gal brain here like almost immediately. So yeah, again, listen to that podcast from last year. I think we spent a little bit more time on the logistics, but as far as the quarterback stuff, the quarterback scoring is extremely favorable for NFFC. It's 6-point passing touchdown and 1 point per 20 yards passing. So a lot of times, the way to win it is to just basically correctly guess the two teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl and work backwards from that bracket and have those quarterbacks because they're getting 4x in the Super Bowl. You said or 3x and 4x if you do what Davis said and you only take one with the bye. Well, you could actually run into 4x on both with a wild.
Because that works back. So working backwards, that worked backward from the thought that the most owned Chief is going to be Mahomes, the most 4x owned is going to be Hurts, and so on and so forth. So like, for example, a 4x AJ Brown is not going to be super owned. But or even further, like a 4x owned Devonta Smith, if the Eagles make the Super Bowl, is going to be like really low. And I love having that 4x differentiator.
So I'm going to show how I kind of plot out my teams on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But and this is part of the quarterback conversation. I did something a little galaxy brain last year. I started with Mahomes and Allen, even knowing that one of them would be out week 2, because there were teams on the NFC side where the quarterback wouldn't necessarily be far and away the best scorer at their position. And it almost worked out.
Well, I would say the way the bracket shook out, it did work out. And both of those guys had a shit ton of points.
Yeah, I think I made the wrong decision week 3. You can kind of see here week 3, I have Stafford or Jimmy. I could have gone for Rams Super Bowl or for Niners Super Bowl. And I think I ended up going the wrong route at that point in time. This is also like not tracked all the way through. I think this is updated after week 1, but essentially, working backwards, you want to have 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x. You want to have the perfect set of multipliers in the Super Bowl, if possible, for, so if you're predicting the bracket, I almost build my teams backwards. And when you build your teams backwards too, Davis, you also see kind of like where you need a replacement, because sometimes you'll be like, oh, I'm going to play the teams I think are going to lose. I'm going to put them at kicker and defense. And sometimes it's weird where it's almost,
you actually don't want that.
Yeah. Like if you can have a high scoring running back that loses round 1, and then you replace it with the team you think is going to the Super Bowl in round 2, like that almost works out better.
Well, it's also sort of interesting because you do have to think about how teams generate fantasy points. So like, I mean, the Chiefs and the Bills are actually great examples of this. The Chiefs have 3 really good fantasy assets, Mahomes, McKinnon, and Kelsey. They don't really have a fourth. You could argue that Harrison Butker on a 2x or a 3x would be pretty viable. Bills, same deal. I mean, Singletary's okay, but certainly like even teams that lose, like let's say the Jaguars get blown out by the Chargers, like ETN still might be one of the 3 highest scoring running back guys in the wild card round. So I do like not in the initial round, not in the first round, but I do like in round 2. So week 2 of this contest, going for a Tyler Bass. The Eagles kicker is a bad example because the Eagles don't kick any field goals, but Butker would be one. Evan McPherson would be one. Although the Bengals, like, they have 4 really good guys for fantasy, so that changes the calculus a little bit there.
Yeah, you can twist yourself in knots. Like if you plot this out, and you definitely want to plot it out. Basically, your starting roster, which guys you think get eliminated week 2 and who you would replace them with, and you do that weeks 1 through 4, and you get an idea of like where your log jam might be and like where you might get screwed up. Some brackets give you some really good optionality where like if you set it up perfect, like you could not be screwed depending on which teams win or lose. But like at that point too, I think one thing I've kind of maybe messed up before is I think I'm further behind than I am in this contest. Like you don't have to be.
Yeah. The classic over swap. Yeah. I mean, no one you're playing against is going to hit the perfect bracket. I think there's 2,500 entries in this. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's like, and people are not like 150 maxing this. They're not covering every combo. Yeah. And also, I mean, it should go without saying, but having a 4x multiplier in the final game on like multiple players is like that could make up for an entire week 1 score, whatever, you know, or like I think it was the year that the Chiefs Super Bowl year, like Mahomes, Watkins, Damian Williams put up with the 4x multiplier like 500 points or something, like just completely absurd.
Yeah. So you can make up a lot of stuff. And if it breaks bad too, like you can pivot to like week 2 or week 3, you can pivot to a team and set up a team that people aren't expecting to go to the Super Bowl, you know, if you are in that really bad spot.
The Vikings. So like, let's say there's a big upset in, let's say like the 49ers lose or something, just like completely theoretically, the 49ers lose to the Seahawks and you started out with McCaffrey or whatever. Like I can already tell going into this contest that people are going to use Justin Jefferson as their Viking and then plan on moving off of him. So, I mean, right away there, Dalvin Cook or Kirk Cousins is a pretty big leverage play, but people are every game that the Vikings win, like let's say even theoretically they get to the NFC Conference Championship, people are going to be picking them to lose in these contests the entire way. And just so as an example, like slight underdogs, like a 3-point underdog in a conference championship game, that's basically a coin flip. But the way people are going to be picking these brackets, it's going to be super heavy Chiefs, super heavy Eagles, super heavy Bills. I'm actually very curious to see what the market does with Bills Bengals in the first 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, well, before I get into the, I want to look at the Allen Mahomes duo again for this year. But before that, as far as like the swap stuff, the other thing too, I've noticed like 2 years in a row, I think it was 2 years ago, we had Fournette had like kind of the surprise big first playoff game. And I was like, oh, I can't add him week 2 because everyone's going to add him. And like not that many people added him.
Yes.
And then last year, the exact same thing happened with Jerick McKinnon. So I guess my point there though is like if someone unexpected does really well, they're not going to be added as frequently as you think they will be.
People stick to their plan, like they have it mapped out, and they're like, okay, I'm going to add T Higgins here, and I'm going to add Chris Godwin here, and then I'm going to add Brock Purdy or whatever. But they're not going to like I don't know who could be a break. Like let's say Elijah Mitchell actually like gets like 21 carries or something against the Seahawks. Like no one's adding him. Like or in an upset victory, same thing.
I wonder if everybody thinks like me too, where I'm like, well, I missed the big McKinnon game. I'm drawing, I can't.
I'm drawing dead.
I'm drawing dead because I missed that. And then I also not only do I miss that, but I have him a week behind on the multiplier. So I'm better off just hoping he stinks. And I think people like me overthink that type of thing. And the other thing with not over swapping, I had T Higgins as a good leverage play over Chase last year, and it didn't really pay off until the Super Bowl. But then the Super Bowl, because that's where the multiplier is higher, like he was able to flip Chase, I think, or at least come close to it, because he had such a better Super Bowl than Chase, even though Chase was outscoring him like all the way. So the people, so there's just interesting wrinkles like that, where just because you start off behind, people can't have Chase week 1 and T Higgins at ×4 multiplier in the Super Bowl. Like it's one or the other. It's not going to break perfect.
And probably I would guess very few entries are going to get like a huge swath of ×4s correct, right? Like yeah. What are the odds that how many teams are going to have 8 ×4s correctly in the Super Bowl? Like I bet that number's really low. Like maybe
you mean 1 through 4?
I'm saying they get both. I'm saying they get both sides of the bracket perfect. That they get all 4 of the AFC teams and all 4 of the NFC players correct. That they get heading into the Super Bowl week, they have 8 ×4 multipliers.
Well, you can max
or not
1 through 4.
Yes, 1 through 4. Sure. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Like in an ideal world, if the bracket goes exactly how you want, you would have 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x.
Correct.
In descending order on the most important players for the Super Bowl teams. And yeah, I do wonder, looking at the bracket. So the Mahomes Allen thing worked last year, I thought, because you had teams in the NFC like the Packers where Devontae Adams scores such a huge chunk of his team points as a non-QB, Cooper Kupp as a non-QB over Stafford, which ended up coming to fruition where you could have added Stafford in the 3rd or 4th week and actually been fine, which is kind of crazy. This year, it's a little
kind
bit
of the
different.
exact opposite.
Yeah, because you've got Hurts with the bye. You've got, but like if you play a Hurts upset build, could you do the Mahomes Allen?
So if you're playing,
you want like a Cousins team, I think.
The problem is that the Eagles, they're like way through to the Super Bowl is like so easy.
Dude, I couldn't believe though. I was putting together expected game stuff because we're gonna have rankings for this and other formats on ETR and expected games as part of that. And Philly on DraftKings was plus 175 and San Francisco was plus 180, which just made no sense to me.
It doesn't. The stick that I will be drawing in the line is that the markets are overrating the 49ers, and if that ends up being wrong, if I have to eat that, like whatever, I'll lose a bunch of these playoff contests, and that's fine. I just don't buy it.
I don't know if I don't buy it, but like them playing an extra game than Philly and also not being home versus Philly in the championship game, like the gap should be wider. It just should be.
I mean, it's the market's basically completely saying that playing the Seahawks is basically a buy. Is saying that there's like a 5% chance or something that the Seahawks end up winning that game.
Yeah, and to your point, like about people like underestimating, like that's not true. I have them with like, let me see if I can find where I don't have it up. Okay, so I have them as like a 19% chance of losing round 1, San Francisco, based on, I mean, that's just based on the money line of the game.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the people treat 19% as zero. So
yes,
as far as getting leveraged, like you don't want to assume like a ton of upsets. And in a contest like this too, like you can navigate around not picking the round 1 games correctly. I will, like I said, I do like to clear up some skill players. So like if I think a game might shoot out, I could take like a wide receiver. I could take 2 skill players in the same game and know I'm going to clear one spot and then get 2x on the other guy. That's something I might do. But yeah, you can definitely play for some upsets. And then like the teammate leverage is so huge. I mentioned the T. Higgins, Jamar Chase thing. Like those are my favorite when, last year there was Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. In the past, we've had AJ Brown, Derrick Henry. I think those make sense.
Thank God we're not having to deal with that this year. I mean, just a true blessing.
You could have faded Tennessee, I guess, but yeah.
I think there are a couple on the NFC side of the bracket. I think there are a couple fascinating ones. The 49ers, I think Debo is like mega insane, uber duper leverage on Christian McCaffrey. Like
it's just be so overweight Debo, and it's gonna be painful, but because people are gonna play a lot of Kittle too.
People are going to play a lot of, especially, I mean, you're going to talk about this tomorrow, but on the FFPC, I think Kittle is going to be super, 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 super popular for 49er stuff.
Debo in these contests is going to be like 5%.
Yeah.
Like, I
think that's going to be my flag plan. I'm going to play Debo as my 49er in all these contests.
What about Purdy?
I mean, if
issue. They go to the Super Bowl.
Purdy feels like you add him as your round 3 ad if they get to that spot against the Eagles, and if you're saying I think the Eagles are going to lose this game, you add Purdy, then I think you add McCaffrey in round 2, or honestly even Ayuk. I mean, that's how insane the 49er stuff is they have 4 dudes, 5 dudes really that you can talk yourself into adding in these contests, which is not the case. Like there are not 5 dudes you would add on any other NFC team, I don't think.
Yeah, Purdy's interesting to me. I agree with you that he's more of a round 2 or 3 ad. The interesting thing to me for him though is if he plays from behind in the Super Bowl, like he's been really efficient and they could spread it out where he could make up, McCaffrey outscoring him overall over the playoffs, but he
Sure.
gets it in the Super Bowl. But I do think he's better with that's where you could try Allen Mahomes and you could hedge or Mahomes Burrow. You could
But
do.
so if you do that, what is your plan with the Eagles then? Are you adding Miles Sanders in?
So I think that would be an Eagles fade where you're playing San Francisco Super Bowl, right? So you play San Francisco Super Bowl, then you can hedge Kansas City Buffalo where it doesn't, or Kansas City Cincinnati where it doesn't matter who wins as long as those two teams meet in the AFC Championship game.
I think the right way to play it is I think you play it like the Bills beat the Bengals. I think you soft fade the Bills or the Bengals. I think that's maybe the right way to play these postseason tournaments. No disrespect to Mr. Burrow and the Bengals, but I think that's kind of the right way to do it.
The harder part with the soft fade is the Bengals PROE this year. Like they've just been way more aggressive passing the ball that it feels like one of their skill players probably gets there. Whereas like last year, they won all those like lower scoring, like close games and they played kind of conservative.
Right.
If they had lost one of those games, like their players really wouldn't have mattered that much. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the Baltimore upset is interesting to me too. If Lamar plays, we got to get.
I mean, I think that's like one of the most fascinating things is like, what do you do with Lamar in these contests? Because he's not played in a month. Harbaugh again today at the press conference was like, I'm not giving any updates on Lamar. So we have no idea how healthy he is. But if you want to talk about a dude who could just roll in and lead all of round one in fantasy points, could totally be Lamar. And we're talking like, you know who people are going to take for the Ravens. People are going to take Justin Tucker for the Ravens.
Yeah, Tucker's going to be the highest owned kicker probably by
like a lot.
Yeah, by a mile. I almost hope Lamar doesn't play to save me from myself because I'm definitely going to talk myself onto Lamar in these contests. Probably not going to go like super crazy on it, but I'm probably going to do 3 of these NFFC entries and I would have Lamar on one of them. I think
can you talk yourself into any other Raven? Can you talk yourself into Dobbins or Demarcus Robinson or Mark Andrews?
Yeah, you could talk yourself into Andrews, especially if it's Lamar.
Hey, he had 7 for 100 in Huntley's last game.
Andrews in a loss isn't, if you
might even actually be optimal because he could out if Lamar doesn't run because he's banged up or whatever. And Andrews does like 28 or whatever, that could maybe even be optimal. And then you replace him with your AJ Brown or your Chief or your Bengal.
Yeah. I mean, if the Ravens don't win, Lamar's not going to be optimal, even if he outscores Andrews, most likely.
Yeah, you're actually really screwed if they don't win. Like having a non-multiplier quarterback is bad, really bad.
Yeah, that's when you need to get creative, which was the thing last year. I actually almost survived. I had Dak on one. So my three entries last year was Mahomes and Allen, and then I think I was all in Allen, or maybe I split Allen and Mahomes.
Wow, where do you get your ideas?
And then, but I played the cute like Dak on the NFC side on one of them and Kyler on one of them, and they both lost round 1. And you just got to play for a team like San Francisco if that happens, right? Like where the Super Bowl quarterback doesn't have to be on the huge multiplier. Like that's what you have to pivot to after round 1 if you lose a quarterback immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say try not to lose a quarterback immediately is like a part. But yes, I mean that I think you hit at a good point, which is that your galaxy braining really doesn't. You don't really need to be galaxy braining what you're doing right now. Like the week 1 wild card round stuff. Like sure, you shouldn't take like the most owned guy at every position and have your roster like insanely duplicated. But it's also like honestly, even if you did, like if I said Leone, your goal is you're going to take the most owned guy at every spot, and my challenge to you is for you to try and win it non-duplicated the remaining 3 weeks. Like it's still like theoretically possible. That's how much like more stuff there is to do after that point.
Yeah. The Galaxy Brain too, like pre-swapping, again, it's mostly teammates that are the second best on their team that are going to be underplayed relative to the top teammate. You know, it's not like you're not playing.
Yeah, it's
You're not
playing
playing
team
Dawson
instead of
Knox.
Chase.
You're not playing
Yes.
Dawson Knox. You know, you're playing Allen or Diggs, maybe Gabe Davis.
I
You're
mean,
not-
if
no.
well, I was going to say, if I remember correctly, like no one had the 4 touchdown Gabe Davis game.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, like in the whole field, no one had it.
That's sort of a red herring to me, where like that is so rare that
Yeah.
like that's all. Gabe Davis of last year was almost like a bad play. You know, like when you get into third, fourth wide receivers, and you just don't need to. So some of these teams are interesting. Seattle's interesting where they've got, you know, 3 guys you can play, and then also
No, they
people
got 4.
no one's gonna play Geno. Dude,
I mean, yeah, no one's going to play Geno. No one's going to play Geno.
no one's gonna play Geno. But I mean,
So-
you've got plus
so
people will play
what-
kicker defense and full fade them. So like between kicker D, full fade, and then 3 guys, like one of those guys is probably going to be really low that could be pretty impactful.
Henry not being in the playoffs for the first time since I've started doing these contests really does change the strategy to such a huge degree, because everyone used to take Henry for 1 round with the plan of immediately swapping off of him. But all of us losers, the 0 RB guys, we would never take Henry. We would exclusively fade the Titans. So our rosters would be different from the get-go versus everyone else.
Dude, RB last year was so bad, and you have to start. So, like, this is another one of the differences between FFPC and NFC.
Yeah,
like 3 versus 2, and it makes a big difference, especially when you go through like the replacements and stuff. Like, it makes the math in terms of like or the planning like matter more because you have less flexibility in what you're doing. So, running back,
I got
C is going to be so highly owned.
So I had to, along those lines, I just had a thought. What about double NFC quarterback and using McKinnon as your attempted Chiefs 4X, and you bring Mahomes in round 2?
No.
It's too Galaxy brain?
Dude, the AFC has Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, like
So okay, so not
like
even
if it was tight end premium, I could say you could do that with Kelsey. But I really think that that's too gal brain to have Jerick McKinnon be the chief, because Mahomes is gonna be so popular too. Like you'll be unique with
you are, if the Chiefs make the Super Bowl and you only have 3x on Mahomes, like you're dead. Like just you're only counting Sklansky's. You will not be counting real dollars.
Yeah, who would you need to go to the Super Bowl to survive not having the quarterback?
You would need.
It can't be a top 3 seed, and the top 3 seeds are so good.
Yeah, it would be the Chargers beating the Chiefs in round 2. Is what would have to happen.
Yeah, or like the Dolphins, or I mean, you just need some upset. I mean, I guess the Ravens.
I mean, that's the Tyreek and Waddle stuff is so fascinating because those dudes have such a high 1-game ceiling, and if they somehow did beat the Buffalo Bills, like Tyreek on a 2x multiplier is like it would be like, I mean, I would never do this because I think I actually do think the Dolphins are 0% probability to beat the Bills, like literally 0.
Well,
I think they could cover, but I don't think they can win.
They can't win with Skyler. There's no way.
There's no way. Yeah.
With Tua or Teddy, maybe. I do think like Allen scores so many points that, again, like this is why I'm in the double AFC quarterback. Like I think if you double AFC quarterback and you played Miami receiver, you could almost free roll the Miami win. And then like if they win, just switch to them instead of just like banking your Tyreek 2x and not adding another Dolphin. Like if you get that lucky, I would play the Dolphins. And if the Bills just win, you're fine. I don't know. I guess maybe that's better to do with Diggs than with Allen, though. Do like Diggs, Tyreek.
What is your plan at the AFC Conference Championship? You let both ride and you do a 1x Brock Purdy or a 1x Kirk Cousins or whatever for the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty reasonable, assuming.
Last year it worked out, but like the pure fucking nuts happened where Josh Allen scored like 40 points in a round 2 loss and had a lot of points round 1, and Matthew Stafford made the Super Bowl.
And did nothing. Yeah.
So that was like the 100% optimal breakout for what I did. And of course I didn't win because I went San Francisco instead of Rams, but like that's it. I don't know if you could do it with Cousins though. Like, I don't know if Dalvin scores enough. Because you need Dalvin round 2, obviously Jefferson round 1. I think you'd almost want to start with Dalvin instead of Jefferson and hope that Dalvin would have like the really big Super Bowl since you're fading Cousins already.
Yeah. I mean, I see it. It's just like the having a 1x quarterback in the Super Bowl with this crop of quarterbacks, just knowing there's like such a good chance that it's Jalen Hurts just, doing Jalen Hurts stuff like that. Right. It just feels so painful.
But if it's not Hurts, like, dude, Dak could, like if the Cowboys go, it could be weird.
Dak could average Dak could average like 17 fantasy points per game and the team could still get there.
Yeah. So like the Cowboys could be weird. I'm trying to think. Look at the bracket right now. But
it could be
the Niners. The Niners though are like, even though we think they're overrated, like if it's Niners or like it works out perfectly. I think you got to do it with the Niners and hope the Niners. What about Tampa Bay? They're a weird team.
I can't. It's like I have such two minds about Tampa Bay, where it's like they've been this dog shit team all year. They refuse to pass the ball. When they do pass the ball, they're pretty good. Like Brady still seems to be, 80 to 90% of like Brady. And you just, it's been written in the stars. Brady whelps around all regular season. And then, the hapless Cowboys get beat by Brady on the road. It's like you just are seeing it all in front of you so clearly. But then it's like you look at the actual on-field data and you're like, the Cowboys are better at everything. They are better running, they are better passing, they're better rushing the passer, better deep, like just they are better at everything than the Buccaneers. So it's just very hard for me to reconcile the narrative versus the data.
Yeah, I want to get my finger on the pulse this week as far as the market, like what they're thinking. I know a few weeks ago I was thinking to myself, dude, Tampa Bay is going to be like 5-point dogs at home, and no one's going to play them, and they actually have a chance.
I think the pendulum is way the other way.
That's what I'm saying. Like that was like 3 weeks, just 3 weeks. Tampa Bay gets healthier on the offensive line. Dallas lays an egg against Washington, and the spread's only 2.5. And now I almost think Dallas is going to be underplayed in these contests. When I think a lot of sharps had them as like the best team in the NFC, like as of a few weeks ago. So they could be undervalued.
I think you're right. I mean, Pollard and Lamb and Prescott are fantasy points per game, like some of the best players in the playoffs, like equivalent to the Bengals guys, but they will not be owned that way at all.
Yeah. All right. Let's build the team, Davis.
Okay.
So we have to decide. Do you want to make your favorite play and then we'll kind of figure out the bracket as we're filling this out, or do you want to figure out a bracket first?
No, that's no fun. I think we figure out our favorite plays and work through the bracket. Okay. My favorite play in the whole tournament is AJ Brown on a 4x multiplier. So starting out with him as your Eagle instead of Jalen Hurts.
Wow. So can't you do this with double AFC QB?
Yes. Yeah, you can. That's why I don't think it's horrible. It's just like the reason why it worked so well for you last year was because Kansas City and Buffalo met in round 2 and not in round 3.
Yeah. You would have to do Buffalo Cincinnati this year if you did it. And
yeah, you would have to pick Kansas City to lose to the Chargers.
I still think I'm going to do one Allen Mahomes with San Francisco Super Bowl.
I
But
think that's fine because everyone's bracket will be picking the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl. The AFC parts will be more fractured. People are more comfortable taking a stand on the 2 seed or the 3 seed making the Super Bowl on the AFC side.
all right, I'm gonna go really chalky here. Actually, trying to figure out what people are gonna do at running back. I don't want to like gal brain too much here, but I'm gonna go Dalvin. Let's. I'm actually not gonna go chalky. Let's get off Justin Jefferson. Let's go Dalvin.
So that's super non-chalky, I think, because I think
You think?
everyone's going to use non-chalk, not chalky. I think that's unique because
Okay.
Jefferson will be the most popular round 1 Viking, but
Dude,
more so I think the running back choices are so clear because
he's
there
top
are
3
good
guys
running.
that they have
Well,
listed.
but
Right.
so yes, those 3 guys, and they don't have teammates that are really competing with them. Specifically Barkley, but also you've got Fournette as an underdog. You've got Kenneth Walker as an underdog. People are looking to basically use those as their kickers, right? Like, oh, Kenneth Walker, he's good. He's basically my kicker. I'll replace him with McKinnon or Miles Sanders or whoever next week.
Yeah. And one other note, you can move your, like, if your flex is a running back and a running back gets eliminated, they'll let you slide that in without losing your multiplier. They'll let you flip that around as long as the player's still on your team. Just FYI.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Dalvin, we've got AJ Brown. Let's just let's put Mahomes in there.
Okay. Mahomes in there. Oh God.
Is he gonna be? Is Mahomes on a bye gonna be the most owned player in round 1? Almost for sure, right? Him or McCaffrey.
What? Okay. This is probably 2 Galaxy Brains. We already got Galaxy Brain. Yeah, I think CMC is the highest owned player in this entire thing. Because it's non-tight end premium, and you need to fill the running back spots and their favorites and whatnot. For the double AFC quarterback strategy, one thing that might work. What about Lamar Mahomes? They would meet in round 2, or if Lamar loses, you add Hurts.
Honestly, strategically, that is better than. Well, it's the same thing as you either have to do Allen, Burrow, or Mahomes Lamar for it to be strict. Now that's maybe not best in terms of projected points, but game tree wise, that's the best way to do it. If
you want a non-San Francisco NFC team, you would have to do. I'm not going to do it yet. I'm just going to leave it as an option. I'm going to go Diggs.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right thing to do. All right, so we're already we're pretty well within the game tree, other than the Dalvin Cook thing. I'm gonna take Pollard as our cowboy instead of CD. And now we could just truly play like the most owned guy. Like we could just play whoever we want now.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go CMC.
Yeah. So I think defense is sort of interesting because you'd like to have a defensive multiplier, but you're fine replacing it. What are your thoughts on defense?
Yeah, I think that's where I think people get tripped up, where it's like almost better to lose your defense round 2 than it is round 1, and then get the Super Bowl skill players, like more optionality to get like, okay, in theory, the pure nuts would be you have 1 through 3x at every position in the conference championship game for all 4 teams, right? Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yes.
And the teams that go to the Super Bowl would be non-kicker, non-defenses 1 through 3x. That's in theory how it would work. So, okay. So I guess what if we take,
I was going to say, what if we take the Chargers defense and don't take Eckler, Keenan, or Mike Williams here?
I think that makes sense. Like we could have taken Eckler and flex. I think Chargers makes sense where they could win a shitty game and then lose round 2, like
and then lose round 2. Yeah. Yeah.
What about guaranteeing one of our soft fades makes it to round 2 by going Jacksonville kicker?
See, I actually think that's so good because you're not wasting one of those spots on a team that you want to win, and you're guaranteeing yourself a 2x, and you are letting you also are kind of setting yourself up for if there is an upset in round one. So like but there's an upset, like let's say the Giants get an upset or whatever. You're not, it's like, oh, I'm super stoked to add Richie James to my team. It's like, no, I'll just put Graham Gano in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're not even worrying about that until the conference championships.
It again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we gotta take another quarterback. So are we taking Lamar, or are we gonna do Joe Burrow?
We could play this as I think you could do either, because we could play this as a San Francisco Super Bowl team pretty easily.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that.
So Burrow.
So we're getting 1x Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl. I think that all works.
So we're definitely dead if the Bills go to the Super Bowl now.
Well, I mean, you set it up. You set it up that way.
I'm thinking like with Lamar, you could potentially add. Well, you can't add because you're making your bed. But if you start double AFC quarterback, I mean, you can't.
And you don't. If you are starting double
another AFC quarterback, if you start with Mahomes on the bye, right? Like you just can't.
Correct. You just can't. You are.
If you add,
you are wed to this.
You're dead. So yeah, it is what it is.
That I don't actually think we covered that, but that should be like more explicitly said. Like, don't replace a guy on a multiplier. Like, if you've got a guy on a 2x multiplier, don't be subbing him out to like fit your bracket or whatever. Like yeah.
So I had this question with Vaccaro last time, and he blew my mind a little bit with. Let's say you get an upset in one of your flex spots and you get a round 2 guy, and like it screws up your Super Bowl team. I do wonder is it worth ditching?
So I guess I should walk it back. It would very much depend on who it was, right? And what that circumstance was. Like, is it worth getting another 2x game out of J.K. Dobbins? Probably not. But what if it's a Miami Dolphins upset and it's Tyreek Hill, and you have Tyreek Hill on a 2x multiplier? Then I would probably just let it ride.
You probably want to let it ride. Speaking of which, like, it might not be a bad idea to do Tyreek on this, where like we want the Bills to not go to the Super Bowl.
We want the Bills to lose. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Let's do it. I think Tyreek is a sick pick in these, actually, because he's got like the ankle thing. But I mean, how many players in the NFL have like a higher 1-game ceiling than him, honestly?
Yeah. And we're also guaranteed to be able to replace a wide receiver now. So
we can add T. Higgins or Jamar Chase next week.
Yeah. Which we need to do. We also are going to need to add Kelsey or Jarek next week.
So we want to put Godwin in there. So then we can either add Kelsey for Godwin or Jarek for Pollard.
Yeah, if we want to guarantee it. And that's another one, like Evans or Godwin. Probably Godwin in a loss, right? Like if you think they lose.
I mean, I just think Godwin anyways, to be honest. I mean, Mike Evans, well, he actually didn't win Crane's $2 million, right? He wasn't on Crane's $2 million team. So
he wasn't.
Yeah. Okay, so we got one flex spot left. We can choose someone from.
Yeah, the teams we haven't used yet: Giants, which aren't bad for a full fade. Seattle, and
Giants, Seattle, Vikings. Never mind. We got Dalvin in there. This is where it gets a little tricky.
How do I not even know? Let me go to quarterbacks. It won't let us. Oh, Baltimore. We didn't do Baltimore.
Oh, Giants. Yeah. We just throw Mark Andrews in there. Right? Or do you want to put Saquon in there? I think either is fine.
I think Saquon.
we have such a weird. This is such a weird start that I don't think we're worried about how owned he is.
Yeah, and then I also like we kind of want Minnesota to lose if we're fading Jefferson. We're like, and then if we got Saquon on 2x, like
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, any team that doesn't start with Jefferson in round 1 does not want Minnesota. Even if Justin Jefferson gets 40 in round 1, what you really don't want is you don't want Justin Jefferson in the NFC Championship on a 3x multiplier going 11 receptions, 212 yards, and a touchdown when you only have 2x.
and also we really do want to clear these flex spots, like especially when you do this quarterback stuff that we're doing, which is weird. We need to clear this flex spot because we need to add Kittle or Debo round 2 because we're playing a San Francisco Super Bowl probably.
Yes.
With a Purdy replacement late. We need to get the KC Cincinnati optionality. So we need to add skill players from those 2, and we're guaranteed 3 skill player spots open.
And we need to add Miles Sanders or Devonta Smith as well.
Yeah, most likely.
I mean, I guess we could do Eagles defense or whatever.
Yeah. So we definitely clear. Saquon Dalvin clears 1. Pollard Godwin clears 1. Diggs Tyreek clears 1. So we get the most important teams because we're kind of playing Philly to lose. So the most important thing is KC. We'd like to have the Philly optionality, I guess, but
we're not playing Philly to lose. We're just playing like AJ Brown is going to go mega nuclear.
Yeah, but we can't add Hurts 2, and if you add Hurts in 3, you're probably.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, we are. So that actually,
unless Burrow loses, like if Burrow lost, you could put in Hurts, but you'd be so far behind because Burrow's probably not going to have a good game, and we don't have a Baltimore person. So but like you could, like
yeah, I actually think with that logic, we need to put Mark Andrews in there instead of Barkley.
So this
where we are way more live with Hurts in there round 2 and a 2x Mark Andrews than a dead Joe Burrow and a dead Saquon Barkley.
So
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we have a little bit more optionality, but it's still probably not good for us if Burrow loses.
It's not good, but they're like I think if you do this and you don't have a 2x against him, like if you don't have a Ravens player and Burrow loses, you just are like, well, I just donated and I'll come back again next year.
Yeah, if Burrow in the other one, if Burrow lost round 1, we'd be dead for sure. But to some extent, you just have to accept that. But I do think this is okay because we could add Hurts 2x and get the AJ Brown alpha Super Bowl game.
That's what I'm saying. This is way better.
Yeah, we can play San Francisco or Philly and keep it alive. And then if Burrow wins, it's very clear. Then you're kind of playing. Then you're playing San Francisco. So basically, whatever happens to Burrow dictates if we're playing San Francisco or Philly on the NFC side.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we did it.
We did
Ship it.
See what happens. All right, Davis, tell the people where they can find you.
All the good stuff. Just search my name in your podcast app and you'll find it. Sports Grid Fantasy Football Podcast, the Takecast, all that good stuff.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll have another one of these episodes tomorrow with Jack Miller going over FFPC strategy. And then on Establish the Run in the main podcast feed for them, we'll have a general playoff preview show, kind of more if you're doing like snake drafts with your friends, like a 12-team snake draft. It's a little less galaxy brain because that stuff whereas the expected games matters a bit more because it's just cumulative scoring. You still want to correlate heavily, but you're not, necessarily just playing one specific bracket. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Good luck this playoffs.